Network on your level. Don't feel as if I need to know this executive or that executive. It's like network on your level, because literally the person beside you, if they're not going to be, if they're not an actor, they'll be the next executive. They'll be the next, you never know who the person beside you is going to be.
I was actually talking to these wonderful panelists about some people have been doing in-person auditions, and it's been even emotional, coming back and being able to hug somebody and see everybody. So thank you for being here. Okay, great. So this is quite wonderful. I'm sure that you're all jumping because you all want to be repped by everybody here. But I really want to dissect and get into some of the questions that are really important that I think that everybody is always asking themselves. And this is a wonderful opportunity to hear from them. So, all right, let's just get started. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like? Because I feel that actors don't understand how busy you guys are, especially at your level and your capacity. It's a little different than the smaller agencies, and no offense to our lovely small boutique agencies, but you guys are definitely do a lot more on your day-to-day. So just kind of like run me through about what you guys do.
I can kick it off. Every day is different. There's no 2 days that are alike, but there's a lot of meetings, a lot of department meetings in various departments where we talk about projects, casting opportunities, projects that we can build together from both a literary standpoint and also potentially talent involvement as well. There's a lot of outgoing phone calls that you're obviously making on behalf of clients, pitching them to casting directors, producers, facilitating appointments, submissions, all that kind of stuff. And then I think for a lot of us, a big part of our job, in addition to representing the clients that we're personally responsible for, we have coverage, which means we're assigned specific studios or territories, whether that means TV networks or film studios or independent producers, and we're covering the projects that they're trying to put together. So it's a lot of reading material, facilitating ideas amongst all the decision makers and disseminating that same info that they're giving back to us as far as feedback amongst our own department, so that other agents who represent other clients within our agency can have that same information and try to get jobs for their clients as well. So it's all kind of, it's a very simple breakdown of it, but that's kind of like the general encompassment of it all.
I would say that was a great summary by Mitch. Pretty much encapsulates everything I think we could possibly do in our day as an agent. And I think just to stress that, I think the coverage aspect is a big part of our job. I think, at all of our agencies, I know at least at WME, we work very collaboratively. So we are always working in teams with other agents to service not just the clients that are, on our individual rosters that you might see on our IMDb, but also, every client of the agency. I think it's a very collaborative effort when there's a great idea for one client, even if you're not, particularly on their team, you're definitely encouraged to go out there and, help put that together, help get somebody the job. We're all working together to kind of help shepherd everyone's career that's represented at an agency. So I think that, there's definitely a kind of a 360 effort that goes on in terms of reading material, talking to writers, directors, filmmakers, and just putting projects together at every stage, whether that's like a packaging stage or a casting stage.
I also think that in today's present age, a lot of talent has ambitions outside of just one area. And the purpose of being at an agency really is to tie together all the different areas of interest to you, and making sure that the agents who specialize in other disciplines are also able to get your name out there in their respective spaces. So a lot of it has to do with talking to colleagues in other departments, educating them on who you are, getting a sense of what it is that you do want to accomplish in the space and how that can tie back into the acting, and just really having those wholesome kind of conversations just to figure out what the holistic vision is for a client's career overall.
How do you guys do coverage yourselves? So can you tell me a little bit specifically like how that works? How many scripts do you guys read? Because like I'm always talking to agents. I'm like, I have like 20 scripts to read, honey. So like, what do you need? Like so just tell us a little bit about that, like how that process works so they understand.
Yeah, so I think at least over at WME, what we do is every agent gets assigned, a studio or a network to cover. Most of the time you have more than one. And you are responsible for creating relationships with those executives over at the studio or network, knowing every project that they have at every stage, whether it's in deeper development, whether it's an old library title that could be reactivated with the right talent or director, whether it's something that it has a director and is actively casting, knowing everything that is kind of under that studio or network's umbrella, and then reading, internalizing the material, having a point of view on that material, and being able to say, I love this. This is great. This is a movie, or this is a hit TV show, or this is fine. It'll work. Anything kind of, having a point of view, I think is some of the most important things that you can do as an agent in your group. And then, figuring out who the right people from your agency are to put in those projects, whether it's something for, someone at a certain level, and then helping get those jobs.
Yeah, the way we do it at Gersh is I did coverage for probably 10 years. I don't do coverage anymore, but I covered Sony films for 10 years, and they're still in development on projects that I started covering on my first time I went to the studio. It's wild to see, but we split up studios and television, but all clients are covered in all respects. And at this point now, with the kind of increase in television, we have a separate meeting to do streaming versus traditional network and cable outlets. And like others have said, the covering agents in a specific territory speak on behalf of the whole company and the whole department, selling clients to the buyers across the board. And then what ends up happening is the agents, once there's meaningful traction, the client starts to really be in the mix, then they really dig in themselves and do the real push for their clients. And then obviously each individual agent negotiates deals themselves for their clients.
Cool thing about coverage is that you actually can see a project from the genesis, but what you guys then see, the final product, on the screen, literally it could have been a project that I had, when I was an assistant, could have seen, and in the coverage it takes, years and years, and then you see projects die and then come back or picked, or bought by a different studio. So really watching the genesis of a project and, the evolution of it, just to add, it's a really incredible part about coverage, I would say. It's, the day in, day out of covering, can be very tedious, but there is, I would definitely say a positive about it as well.
But it's really the lifeblood of an agency is really their information and their access to the information. And it's a critical thing that, we have, for example, I think we have 7 agents covering Netflix. And it's just because there's so much content being made. And like you said, like with the development, and there's kind of just a different approach to stuff that's actively casting and, opportunities for clients to go in and audition versus, say, projects that are being built in development and, might not happen for years down the road.
I also think we end up collaborating with our lit counterparts quite a bit, because at the end of the day, you have to know what a studio or a streamer wants in terms of content to get a better sense of what opportunities will be there for actors. And that changes from time to time. Right now, I feel like everything is so heavily based in the world of IP. And so really collaborating with our lit colleagues to figure out who it is, who's buying what IP, what are they working on next, what is it that's being bought, and what our clients' organic interests are as well, especially in the world of IP. Showrunners, directors, they want to know if you're organically interested in the subject matter that they are really storytelling about.
So as a casting director, as a casting professional, the way that it usually works is we're given a script. Whether it's cast contingent or whatever, we have to create a list of ideas of who are going to be our stars, our A-listers, our series regulars. And then we generate like 80 names. And then I go to you guys and say, okay, are these people available? Are these people available? Who do you have? Who do you have? Who do you have? And then the good covering agents give us a list back. Okay, these people are available. These are not available. But what do you think about so-and-so? What do you think about so-and-so? How does that work for you guys? Because in casting, that's our job. We have to brainstorm. How do you brainstorm within your agency to come up with the best ideas or ideas that you think that would be good for our projects?
So I think when you're, doing the job for long enough, you kind of have a really good sense of your department and the clients and what they're necessarily looking for, even if you're not personally representing them. And so when you're kind of evaluating these opportunities, you're not only just evaluating the material and how good it is, but also like what are the logistics behind it, as far as what kind of budget do they have in the roles, how many options, if it's a TV show, do they want, what's the time commitment, are these kind of actors looking for something like that? And so you're able to really kind of discern, not just like on paper if they're available and they fit the box of what the character calls for, but really, is this going to fit into someone's life? And I think that's what, like, as agents, we kind of are really there for, to kind of be able to advocate on behalf of our list and kind of help guide the casting directors and the producers and execs where this role can potentially land for. Because like Matt Damon isn't going to do every single role that's under the sun, right? And so you got to really direct them and see who's actually going to want to do this. And then vice versa, you guys might not be excited about a particular idea when it starts because everyone kind of sees, stars at the very beginning and wants to get the biggest and brightest out there. But you might be overlooking who's actually really, really right for the part. And I think that's where we love to roll up our sleeves and really hit all the decision makers to convince them and make them understand that, like, this is who you might think you want, but you're overlooking this person, and this is who's actually right and is going to want to do the job and can really, make a difference in someone's career. So
how we actually start to be creative in our position. I think sometimes just looking at things like on the nose or exactly how it's written, that particularly for me, that's really boring. So when you send over, that list and I look at it, I'm like, well, who else could make sense for this, and something a little bit different, a little bit out of the box. And I think that also kind of comes in play with, getting to know the clients. Like Mitch said, you do get to know the greater list, but just your individual clients as well. I think that also just goes to show that agent-client relationship, who I know, this is something that, they do want to do next, or something that would challenge them in a certain way, and I think that all plays into how we then send you those lists, and, it's the fun part of the job as well.
It really has to do with the relationship with the casting director and the agents too, right? Because, like, I already know that so-and-so is not going to like that person. I already know that you're going to like the person. I know you hate that person. So I'm not going to say, this person, but it's so frustrating when we're on the same page, but then, like, the director or the producers don't agree, or the studio doesn't agree, or the studio doesn't approve someone. Give us a little bit, give us a success story when you won somebody over, and then a horror story when it's just not a horror story, but, like, what do you do? I know we all want those juicy details. Settle down. How do you, because I think that a lot of you don't understand is the approval process too, because we do have an approval process that we have to go to. Sometimes somebody's not approved. So, success story, and then when somebody wasn't approved, what do you do in that situation? Yeah, like you called somebody, you thought somebody was great, then you won the casting director over, and it finally worked, and the person got the part, perhaps. If it's happened, I hope it's happened.
I mean, I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but I had a client in a movie that they were attached to the movie for, 2 or 3 years, and it kept getting pushed just because of different commitments that have come up for both the actor and the director, and then the pandemic happened and it pushed everything by a year or two. And finally, this movie was seeing the light of day and was, like, in pre-production and about to get going. And the main antagonist, who's a really well-known actor, fell out like 3 weeks before the movie was supposed to go. And I started scrambling because, I had a client involved. I wanted to make sure this was going to stay on track and actually happen. And the producers and the studio were going after actors of a very similar ilk than the actor that dropped out, and were very regimented in going after, it was a villain. It was like a male in his, like, 60s or 70s. So they were going after all these, like, venerable, really established actors who take a couple of weeks to read a script and, want to decide if it's going to fit into their summer plans, and don't necessarily, like, want to jump on an airplane to Germany to go film this. And so I realized, like, if we keep going down this path, like, we're just going to lose our window. And just by way of me being having a close relationship with one of the producers, who we were actually assistants together back at WME, like, 10 years ago, called him and I was like, hey, you need to stop thinking about those guys. I have this actor. He's 35 years old, but he speaks German and this is shooting in Germany, and the villain doesn't necessarily have to be an older person. It's just like if they have the character types and can be an antagonist, like you should really pay attention. And just given the creative and the storyline, the German component really, really helped here. And we convinced everybody to let him read a script, meet with the director without an offer. And literally the day that the movie was either going to get greenlit or fall apart, they approved him. And so it went from a 60-something-year-old to, a 39-year-old client. And we kept the movie on track and got, several clients going to work. So.
Do you want to share your story?
Sure. All right, I'll try to beat that. But I guess almost similarly, a covering agent sent me a script for a client, which, the offer had originally went out to a white 30s, very high level actor, and he had passed on it. He said, I think that this would be really great for your client at the time, who was a black male in his 30s, but in the script was definitely, written Caucasian. I read the script. I definitely thought this was something that was very much in his vein and something that I knew that he would be looking for. Sent it to him. He read it, fell in love with it. But again, he's not exactly the prototype of what they were looking for. We knew the next person that they were going to go to was going to be another white Caucasian male in his 30s. So I went ahead and just called the producer. I did not have a relationship with him. I introduced myself, let him know about my client. He was very interested in just knowing a little bit more about him. And I asked why. Why does this role have to be a white male? There was nothing in the script that gave any particular specifics to why. There was no family, there was no background. So I just asked why, a simple question like that, to which he couldn't answer. And with that, I said, could you at least just give him a chance and let him read? There were no sides, because again, this was just an offer-only role that they were just looking for high-level names. So I had my client choose a couple of scenes from the script, put himself on tape, sent it to the producer, who then immediately shared it with the director. The director fell in love with him, had a meeting, and he was the star of that film. And so, yeah. So what Mitch said, I mean, we very much, agents truly are also your advocates in this industry, which I think it's very important when you do sign with an agent to make sure it's someone that truly believes in you, because only someone in that particular, in that respect can really make those pushes for you.
Well, and is going to have the time to do it. It doesn't frankly matter if you're represented by any of us up here if they're not going to take the time to make the phone calls and to put themselves out there to get you those opportunities. That's all that really matters at the end of the day.
And that actually brings up a question, because actually this is interesting, because it's happened quite a lot. Is there any situations when somebody may have moved up too soon and they got lost, within the pile and the pitches? Does that happen often? Can you tell me a little bit about that, and how does an actor know when they should be ready for that level? I was saving it to last, but I think it's going to be quite juicy, so I'm asking it now. But how does an actor know when they're ready to be repped by somebody like you, or when is it too soon?
I mean, I think that it is important to be represented by somebody that is equally as passionate about you as you, where you feel the passion in them that you feel in yourself. And I think that when you want to be at a bigger agency, or you want to be represented by the biggest person before you've booked the right job or you progress far enough in your career, it's not the right fit. I've been asked a number of times by, clients to represent their friends or their significant others, or, their children, or somebody, that doesn't have the credits or doesn't have the experience before. And oftentimes, I have to say, I don't think that they're going to be well served here at this stage in their career. I actually think that at a much smaller agency, or with the right manager that feels passionate about them and, is ready to do the developmental work and really dig in on self-tapes and dig in at that right level and give the attention that they need, I think that's where they're going to be best serviced. Because honestly, I don't feel like I will be able to do the best work or service them correctly, at that stage. And I don't think that's fair to talent. I don't feel like that's fair to actors who really are putting in the work and are putting themselves out there and are building. And I think you just need to find the right partner that is able to meet you at the stage of your career that you're at and really dig in and do that developmental work with you. Because being at the biggest place or the shiniest place or with the most established agent really doesn't do anything if you're not, ready for it, and if they're not ready to activate you in the right way. That's just how I would say it.
I also think like the word ready is so vague. It's what we do is so it's not numerical. There's no statistic to what it is that makes someone ready or not. But I think the one thing that you as an artist have in your control is intent. And it same goes for us as agents. It's like, what is our intent in signing this person? What is my intent in being on this person's roster? Is it truly because I feel like this is the person who understands me as an artist and is going to be able to advocate for me and is going to do the work for me? Or is it because they represent so-and-so and I just want to be on the same roster as that person? I think both parties and agents as well. It's the same thing for us. We have to hold ourselves accountable to a standard where are we signing this person because we really want to build this person out and we really believe in them and want to stick with them until the end and provide them with a livelihood and pay their bills and all of the other things that come with our job. That question I think has to really be asked on both ends. And I think that that's just the responsible thing to do because this is work at the end of the day.
I think, when a manager asks me or a lawyer asks me, what are you looking for in a potential client? It's an impossible thing to answer. The same way when you're looking for, potential, when you're reading actors, you just kind of know when you know. And, oftentimes you think you're looking for something and you find something totally different. So I think there's no specific spec to determine when somebody's ready. It's, like you said, you want to, as actors, you need opportunities and you need at-bats. If you get one audition in a year, it's pretty hard to get a job. And so you need representatives that are going to give you the opportunities to book jobs. And same thing for me. When I'm looking at people, I try and assess them. Do I think, for what they're looking for, are there opportunities out there for them? And I try not to look at it as like, well, I'm only looking for this type of person. I just want to assess each person individually and see if, I think that I can help them move ahead.
I think also it's important to be cognizant of what the platform is going to be off of what you're getting incoming interest in from a representation standpoint. Like, I think we all are kind of assessing, who's out there, whether it's a breakout performance or a really impactful scene stealing part, or even a flashy guest star in like a, buzzy TV show. I think you'll kind of know when the time is right because more times than not, if you have one of those platforms, like the reps are going to be coming after you. And having the wherewithal to realize like you just got to kind of keep your head down, do good work. And if you're doing good work, there's no doubt it's going to get recognized somewhere, somehow by someone. And the person that recognizes it and sees that, special spark in you and the person that's really passionate, like you're going to feel that and realize that. And I know it's kind of hard, maybe trusting that when you're still just kind of like, chasing all the opportunities and really just trying to like get your foot in the door. But I really think like that's where the most impactful collaborations between an artist and an agent really come from, is when there's a platform and there's an ability to build off of that platform and really take advantage of the moment and capitalize on that momentum and take them to that next, level.
Do they train you at CAA to say that? Because that was really good.
Will you tell them to pay me more?
Well, so in the last panel, somebody from CAA said the same thing, and that was like the golden phrase that I kind of stole and say to everybody. This is what he said. I'm not gonna say who. We will come to you. Once you're ready. More than likely, that's the case. And then when we expounded on that conversation, another agent actually there kind of expounded on that by saying like, what can I do as an actor to then get your attention? And they kind of said, then build a platform for yourself. So how do you do that? How do you build a platform or build a market for myself that will hopefully gain some recognition?
Okay. Now there's literally a plethora of platforms for you guys, which is incredible, and a lot different than even, I won't even say 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, obviously doing the work, I mean, first and foremost is the most important thing. Get out there. If you're doing short films, if you're doing, TikTok, there's so many different elements now. Theater, of course, is something, very high on my list of how I find talent as well. And then obviously, your own relationships. Some of the best advice that I ever got was to literally, they say, to network on your level. Don't feel as if I need to know this executive or that executive. It's like network on your level, because literally the person beside you, if they're not going to be, if they're not an actor, they'll be the next executive, they'll be the next, you never know who the person beside you is going to be. And literally the people that I came up with are literally, I actually can say, oh, my friend is the head of, one of the VPs at Universal, and like we were assistants together. So I think very importantly, staying true to again, who you are, doing the work, finding ways. There's so many outlets now. I think that that's just important to continue doing in that way. We do look, we do find, we do hear, from clients, from executives, from, our buyers, or, always educating us on like, I just met with this actor. I feel as if, you guys just, would you take a meeting with them? I mean, there's so many different ways. You never know where it's going to come. And I think that that's just the most important thing. Just continue doing the work.
I think also, as you're involved in any project, whether it is a short film, a play, any type of production, if you had a show, a movie, anything, I think just conducting yourself well and building on those relationships through that working experience, like that word of mouth is honestly the best thing you can do in terms of just building relationships organically, no matter what it is. I think any work that you're doing and putting yourself out there, I think building off of those relationships is extremely important, because people call, anybody you've worked with in the past and ask for a reference, and that actually like does matter. And I think also, as you're going in the room on auditions, hopefully more and more, as casting directors and you can see you, I think, those are some of the most meaningful relationships as you're starting out, especially, and just continuing to build on those relationships as you audition. I think that's one of the reasons why getting in the room is so important.
Do you guys take referrals? So talking about like, you say buyers, things like that. How does that look like? Who do you get the referrals from usually?
Casting directors, managers, lawyers, agents from the UK, Australia, Canada, other clients.
One thing that was really interesting, and as I've been doing this for a little bit, is do you keep tabs? Because I think that even for us casting people, we may audition you and you may be excellent. And half the time, don't take it personal because you are good. You may not be right for this project. The same thing for agents. Sometimes you guys meet people and it's like, you're probably not right now, but that doesn't mean that I probably won't sign you or may refer you to someone else. So does that happen? Like, do you guys keep tabs on certain people? Like, try in 6 months, try in a year, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. I think kind of back to what I was saying about momentum is like, it's really about timing, right? Like somebody could be sitting on your list and not getting service and they're missing out on like the one opportunity that's like there that's going to, take them to the next level. But then if they were somewhere else and they got to that next level and then you're signing them, then you're really like meeting at the right moment. That's in everybody's best interest. But I think to your point about tracking, like we all track everything, like especially if it's something in the mainstream that's actually coming out. Like we have meetings where we just kind of go through and who do we represent, who do we not, has somebody seen this, is it good, is it not, if it is good, is it the right time to reach out? If it's not, let's just like kind of keep them like in the back of our heads and somebody that we're going to keep following. And if you're 1 or 2 roles away from like where you're consistently booking and these are like impactful jobs that you can build a career off of, like, yeah, we absolutely take notice and are very much kind of paying close attention to all of that.
It's our job to pay attention. It's our job to know who's booking these roles. We literally, that's part of our coverage. So trust me, we will come for you when we are ready.
We also watch so much. I think all of us here, it's almost hard to keep up sometimes, but whether we're watching or another colleague of ours is watching, we keep our eyes peeled on anyone and everyone. And I will also say too that the other people who end up calling about the actors that they love are filmmakers, showrunners, like the people who are on set. And I think that everyday practice of going to work, giving it your all, being timely, being professional, and really just delivering in the art is so important. And the number of passionate phone calls that we receive from the creatives on the other end who are working with actors day in and day out, those kind of referrals mean the most to us.
I will say, at least for me personally, because you asked about, when somebody ready and how do you know, I do sometimes see where managers will call or producers will call and they'll ask agents to meet somebody as a favor, as a potential client, and you end up doing it, but there's no real reality to it. And I do think that sometimes when that person comes back around and there could have been a more right moment, you've kind of undercut your opportunity. And I do think the agency remembers, and when an email goes out again about that potential person, I think there's inherently a level of trepidation in terms of starting that conversation up again if there had been a meeting when it probably shouldn't have happened yet.
Usually it's really funny how it happens, because I remember a long time ago when I was at ABC, there was somebody that went for a referral to a big agency, didn't get signed, but they called an executive where we were at, like, please meet this person because they got something, met, okay, thank you so much. But then I was looking for something very specific, and that person just happened to meet that. And I, saw them walking down the hallway, and I kind of chased after them. And then, the VP said, no, they're great, they're excellent, whatever, awesome. Introduced them to the casting director. They got the part, and now they're a huge star. So it's just timing, and you never know. So even if, so-and-so A, B, and C may say no to you, but if they give you a referral or if they say, I'm going to keep tabs on you, you better believe that. So keep going, keep doing your work, keep doing your thing, build a market for yourself, make yourself marketable. There's so many things now, as Fatmata was saying. Somebody, an agent said, if you're Latino, you're like, go to the Latino market. If you could convince me that you mean something in the Latino market, I will look at you. So there's just so many things that we could be doing. Let me look here, just because for time's sake. For those that don't have big credits, what should our actors be doing to beef up their resumes? Like, what trainings do you look at? What's impressive for now? So they may not be signed to you right now, but like, what's good? What do you look for? What's impressive to you?
I mean, there's certain acting teachers, I would say, in classes that I particularly, I know of, and, I'll look, if I see a resume, I'll say, oh, okay, I know this particular teacher. I know they're great, and to that respect, I think, improv is always something great to see on the resume as well, in regards to classes, and particularly, I just theater. That's something that I really respond to personally. There's such a foundation in it, and so I tend to really look at theater credits, or someone that has been not necessarily on Broadway, but if you've done year round in theater within LA or New York, that's something that kind of shows me that there's definitely something there to respect.
Anybody else?
I was also going to say, like, to Fatmata's point, but, if you're doing showcases or you're just kind of like self-generating, I think there's this like buzzword that agents always say, but like everyone's always kind of looking for it, is like a multi-hyphenate, right? And wanting somebody that's not just wanting to be like an actor for hire, but can be a self-generator. And I think if you're truly passionate about making it and wanting this to be like your life, then like self-generating your own opportunities. Like if you haven't booked in a while and you really just want to like get out there, like write something or collaborate with some of your friends who can do it. And it doesn't have to be like a full short film. It can be like a funny set of like web series, like whatever it is. Like there's ways to put content out there to make sure that you're not only training your own muscle, but like staying top of mind and just showing what you are about as an artist. And I think work always begets work. And so even in those kind of like down periods when, it might not seem like the industry wants you, then like make the industry want you,
And I know some casting directors do workshops where you can, attend their workshops and you can audition for them. And I've had instances and have had colleagues where casting directors have proactively reached out because people are in their various workshops and they've seen their work firsthand, and said, hey, you should really check this person out. They don't have a huge body of work, but there's something there, and that's led to a meeting, because I do know it's a question that I've heard for 20 years. How do I get how do I end up on film where people can see it? And I know that is probably the hardest part of this, is how do I get the work that ends up in front of people that then want to sign me and help me get other work.
I dread this question because I used to be totally against it, and now literally everything I do requires this. But social media, how important is social media? Everybody's gonna have a different answer, by the way.
I think social media has to be organic to you. I think there's no upside to social media if it's not something that is productive in terms of what you want to create or how you want to represent yourself in a really organic way. I think there's kind of like two buckets to social media. I think one is kind of, as Mitch was saying, like if you are somebody who is a creator and want to use social media as a platform to create, I think that's wonderful and is a way to be noticed and is a way to form relationships with other creators and just make more connections. And I think that, and I think we've also signed a number of people at WME who have come from the TikTok space or from Instagram or have kind of blown up online by, being able to do, different comedy skits or impressions or whatnot, and then have also transitioned into the traditional acting space in representation that way. And then I think secondly, there's kind of the bucket of, as a traditional actor, how do you represent yourself online? And I do think that needs to be, sharing your recent work. It needs to be, professional to an extent, but I think that it shouldn't feel forced. Like if you're not somebody who, I have plenty of clients who don't post on social media regularly, and I don't think it hurts them in that regard. So I think social media needs to be organic to the person.
Well, and whether buyers, casting directors, producers say they're checking your social media, they are. If you're in like the final mix and they're deciding between a couple of people, less maybe because of who has more Instagram followers, but just to get some understanding of who they'd have on set with them. But in terms of whether I use it as a tool or not to talk about clients, they have to have millions of followers for a buyer to care. So whether you have 100 followers or 10,000, it's irrelevant because none of those numbers are going to matter to a potential buyer.
I agree. I think it's all situational. It really has to feel like what's right for the artist. Like I have clients who have been in really big studio films and have had really big breaks, and they have zero social media and zero presence, and that's just not who they are and not what they want to, engage in their time with. And so I haven't personally found that that's been detrimental to them, but I think we'd all be lying if we said there hasn't been this trend recently where in certain projects, not every single one, but there are certain, more so I feel like in the independent movie side, when things are just trying to be financed or trying to get like the most eyeballs, like that is definitely a factor. But by no means do I think that you need to engage in social media or try to build up your followers just for the sake of like getting a job. And I think on the flip side too, like if you have really irresponsible social media and people are checking that out, like that can be a deterrent, because if people don't really know who you are and they just have this perception of who you are just based on what you're putting out there, that might not always be the best thing either.
That's very true, you guys. Like literally just like last night, I had a director session this morning, and one of my people was like literally drunk, like at 2:00 in the morning, like on a table somewhere, and I'm like, I hope they made it, but I was very nervous. So just be smart. And one of the things that one of my mentors always said is like, you guys are your own business at the end of the day. So regardless if you're repped by, UTA, CAA, Gersh, WME, your name is still your own business. Regardless, because you're still running your own show. Your name matters. Protect the integrity of your name. Okay, that is so crucial. Okay, let's take a look at some of the audience questions. This is so crazy. Some of your guys' questions are insane. Do you think that it's beneficial for actors to have separate agents for different markets, countries? An example, LA, Atlanta, London, Mexico. Talk to us a bit about that.
I have a lot of international clients, and so it really depends. I wouldn't say like regional agents are all that helpful unless it's, you're planning to be a local hire in that market and it's a commercial opportunity, I think that world's a little bit different. I share a lot of clients that have reps elsewhere in Asia in particular, and they want to work in their local market. And I completely encourage that. I think that's its own set of relationships. Sure, everything is kind of tying together in the world of globalization, but that is partially because of the language that they speak and where they're from and staying true to their culture. So if that is the lane that you are in, then that absolutely makes sense. I think just within North America, though, it just really depends on where you're at in your career and what kind of jobs you're wanting to pursue. A lot of the casting opportunities within a specific region of the U.S., outside of LA or New York, probably are going to be more local hire opportunities.
It's so crazy how sometimes we have to convince the studio producers, because I had an example when we had an actress who means like huge in Mexico, for example, and then like American market does not see that. And then so we get on the phone, like we have to convince so-and-so, send me the numbers, send me the press, send me everything, because now we need to convince that this person means something and could be beneficial to your project. How are we? I don't have my phone on me. I totally left it. How are we doing on time? Somebody want to give me the time? Okay. All right. I selected some of the ones with what do some of your successful clients do consistently that set them apart?
I have one client who is probably the most impressive self-taper. Not in the sense that like his auditions themselves are that good. I mean, they are, but what I'm trying to say is like he goes all out on like the production value behind it. And not that I'm saying everyone needs to do this, but like he just takes it to the max where it's like, even if you don't feel like he's exactly right for the part, like you just want to watch the tape because it's just like a fun, 2-3 minutes to, take in the middle of your day. And, depending on what the project is, like he's done poetry in the version of what the character might do, or like, I don't know, spoken word, or, singing, or like whatever, or like crazy like edits, like just whatever it is. And I think what really sets it apart is just you see how passionate he really is about the opportunity, right? And whether or not it's exactly what the director's looking for, I think it undeniably makes him stand out. And he's been pretty successful off of that.
I literally picture him like jumping off an airplane and then doing stunt driving and then and also don't get too crazy with that, guys, because now I literally envision all of you doing something creative and wild, and then I'm gonna get a call from SAG. That,
sometimes less is more.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think really successful clients, one thing I've holistically seen from all of them is they watch a lot. They are inspired by other actors, either of their caliber, of a lesser well-known. They know their filmmakers. They read a lot. I think just devouring the medium that you are obsessed with really affects the art. And I would say that really goes around with all fantastic actors.
So that's a question that means a lot to me. What are your agencies doing, or you as a team doing, to help diversity?
I think that one of the most important things that we can do as an agency is making sure that our agents represent the clients that we want to represent. And so I think that means just diversifying our agent pool. And that starts at an assistant level, because that's how you grow talent within an agency, and making sure that we become more representative of the population as a whole, and obviously of the talent that we want to represent.
Yeah, I think to that point, like we at CAA, we have pipelines with HBCUs to make sure that whether or not they want to be in the representation lane, that they have a direct avenue or contacts to get their foot in the industry. I think as a company, we've really focused and have specific departments that have been focused on local language content. We have an entire CAA Africa department that's really focused on the different subregions and the talent, both on the lit and talent side that's coming out of them, and making sure that there's a direct pipeline to help cross them over into our market, but also make sure that the deals and the living wages that they're getting are growing and are kind of matching the industry that we have here in LA and in Hollywood. And I think beyond that too, like just really focusing on talent that, like for myself, like I'm a first generation queer agent. So like wanting to find those talents that, you know, whether they're trans, whether they're queer, whether they're non-binary, whether they're, you know, from different parts of the world that we haven't necessarily seen before, speak a different language, making sure that, if they're actually talented and there's something in them. And I think now that we see that there's been such a different push amongst the industry towards wanting to putting those people to work and having underrepresented voices being in the forefront of content, like not only is it the right thing to do, but it's also like a smart business decision. And I think that's personally what gets a lot of my generation, I think a lot of us here on this stage, excited that we can kind of be like the new wave of representation and kind of kick the old guard to the side.
Yes. I'm telling you, CAA must be giving like training videos. Like,
I promise you, no one knows me.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think for me, I didn't come up at UTA. I came up from another agency actually, and I think part of the draw for me about UTA in particular was the fact that they had already like really believed in some of these specific actors and talent directors and writers who from obscurity really just had a story to tell that maybe wasn't the main story being told at the time that they were coming up. And that for me was so encouraging. And I felt like I collectively wanted to be a part of something like that. But I think also what the agency does really is like they trust the next generation of agents to understand their taste. And even if they don't see it right away, at least trusting, I want to see what you can do with this person. We're going to dedicate the company's resources to letting you run with it, and let's see what happens. And I think that allows us to grow as agents, but it also allows the industry to grow as a whole, because we are just one of a much larger picture in terms of all the players involved, whether it be on the studio network creative side. And I think just having a company instill their trust in you and really let you know that they trust your taste, that goes a long way.
I think when our side reflects what the world looks like, you know, the different perspectives that we each individually have, I think it then reflects on our client list. Our client list is so different than what it looked like, you know, when I first started at Abrams. And even, you know, going to CAA, coming back and just seeing, you know, the diversity, like literally it's been more so, you know, I would say everywhere now. You know, you don't have the success of like, you know, and everything everywhere all at once, you know, without having agents that reflect people that, you know, that of Asian descent, African descent, and having these different perspectives now, I feel as if we can actually have more conversations and push the envelope and go outside the box and really educate more of these buyers and saying there is a lot more to this role than just what you've written on paper. And sometimes I do say, sorry, but creatives aren't as creative as they think they are, and sometimes they need a little push, and that's what we do. And I think when you have someone that, you know, people that reflect more of the globe, we're able to kind of bring in a lot more diversity in that way.
It's kind of like Marion Doherty's words. I think it was Lethal Weapon, when it's like, I want to hire so-and-so, but he's black. And she said, and? Right? So sometimes these conversations are had between us, you know, and something just wonderful happened. I'm doing a huge search for Native American First Nations people. And then I got a phone call. I got several phone calls actually from agents saying like, hey, actually, if you find that, will you let me know if there's anybody interesting that I should meet? Like that stuff happens. So don't underestimate, like no matter how small the project is, if it's a short film or new media, whatever it is, you don't know who we're working for or who we're taking the phone calls. Because you better believe that if I find somebody amazing from nowhere, like I'm going to be like, yo, I think that you should really meet this person, you know, or set up a general or something. They have something magical. But when we get the phone calls, that's kind of amazing. That tells me that you guys are looking for that. And then to finish off, since we're living a climate of stress every day, the world is literally ending every morning, especially to us. I can't even tell you. I want to hear from each of you. What do you do when you're stressed out to ground yourself, to bring you back? Keep it PG-13, please.
For me, obviously the stress of the job and then also the stress of a husband and a kid is a lot. But truly for me, my stress reliever is I do love to read, not a script. I actually take a break from a script. I read a book that takes my mind out of this world, and that's honestly part of the reason that I came into the industry is because I love reading. I do love a good massage. I do love a good glass of Malbec. Truly, that's really my getaway right now. I can't really go too far with the 1-year-old, but yeah.
I'll keep it PG. I don't know what this says about me, but I have a big guilty pleasure in reality television. And so at the end of a long day where I just want to turn because you have to understand part of our job, right? Even if you're watching something for enjoyment, there's still a part of your brain that's oh, who's that actor? Where are they repped? What are they doing next? And so reality TV is the one medium where I can just completely unplug and unwind. So a marathon of Real Housewives of any city will go a really long way.
I can attest to that. I used to work very closely with him, and he would come in my office every day and tell me about the next episode.
I'm also probably an unscripted television / podcast person. I love cooking shows in particular, just the regular sounds and the fact that and especially the feel good ones, the competition series, if you watch some of them, the camaraderie and just all of that and the visuals, it kind of gets your mind off of everything.
My guilty pleasure is TikTok. I think instead of reality TV, I just watch these girls do their makeup, and then I don't buy any of the makeup or do any of the tricks, but it's very soothing. And they talk about their days and they're in college, and it's all lovely. So that's what I do.
Just found out that Bailey Sarian is with you, so I'm sure that you're thrilled that she's with you too.
Sadly, I can never turn it off, but I have 2 sons, and I coach a couple of their sports teams, and it's just fun to see people who don't care about anything that we do and have no interest and have no idea what we do, and just to watch young people get to be young and not be stressed, and that's de-stressing.
And then for me, so really funny.
Not be called by agents.
Right. Actually, it involves that. So my parents very cutely bought me a PS5 for the holidays, and I actually felt like a kid when I was like, "Are you serious? Wow, right?" So anyway, I'm casting for movies. I'm really stressed the fuck out. Sorry, don't mind my French. I'm like, I can't. I need to turn off my mind. So I'm playing, and my assistant's calling, "Hey, so and so, big age." I'm like, I really don't want to talk to them right now because I'm not right now. So I'm like, "Are you gaming?" "No, I'm not." So on Discord, I see so and so boop go on, and I get the call. Right, it's like, "Are you Lady Loki?" I was like, excuse me, are you gaming too? Oh my God, we are. So we played Dragon Age Inquisition and negotiated a deal that we signed over Discord. So find yourself a cast and droid that could do that over Discord. Anyway, it was a beautiful evening. I'd like to thank every single one of you for being here tonight in person. I was just telling them, is this what you guys do? Because this kind of sucks. It's so nerve-wracking to be up here with the lights and everything. So kudos to you guys for doing your work. But thank you, every single one of you, for being here. It was a beautiful night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.